Good afternoon, people. Welcome back to Dave's Diary. And as I'm going to say promised, but I promised that I would do an update on my worktop when I'd actually achieved something a bit more significant. Yeah, well, I was lying. Well, not telling the truth. Anyway, I've locked it again. Been out on a job today, did a couple of hours work. That was enough, came home. Anyway, why am I coming back out to make another video? Well, to say the least, I am very impressed with the output or the outcome of my little project thus far. What is that, you ask, for those that haven't got a clue what I'm talking about? Well, over in the background there are several bars that I had laser cut. I brought them home, drilled them out, tapped them to the 14 by 1 mil thread to allow me to use bushing guides or drill guides, the ones that came with this particular bar. Ignore these at the moment. They come in different sizes, as it turns out. Initially, the ones came mainly with an 8mm, these two here, to allow for a brad point drill bit to go down so you can drill for your dowels. So this is ideal. I was going to use that to create a MFT style of top with the 96mm increments and therefore the 32mm divisions of that 96. Still might do that. But that's really only necessary if you're building cabinets or cabinetry. And even then, it's questionable whether it's necessary or is just the industry standard. Anyway, long story short, anyone that's seen my videos, I know they're never short. Those bars are done to 100mm increments. I have also got a 250 by 250 mil plate, which is over here. You can hear it, but you can't see it. It's a bit heavy. But I've got that plate, so 250 by 250, 10 mils thick, 20 mil centre holes, 25 mil centred holes. Of course, they are 100 to there, and therefore 50 to, you get the idea. They also have been drilled out to the 14 by 1mm thread. There's a lot of holes there, and it allows me to put the guides into those holes to give me different positions for my projects. Don't know what my projects will be, but I've got a plate and a bar system that will allow me to produce the items, the MFT tops as I want them for specific tasks. One task is there's two different jigs there for two different sized projects that I've got on hand. I want to make up jigs using auxiliary pieces of melamine to go onto the MFT top, like most people would. In fact, this is one of the output. This is just trial samples that I was using in those jigs I was just talking about. Now, I want those to go onto my MFT top. Now, I need to be able to place or create an auxiliary top or plate to take the jigs or make up as a jig. For that, I need to be able to place and create holes accurately for my jigs. One of those things is to be able to, one of those tasks is to locate something like this or those bars accurately. So if I drill a single 20mm hole in the plate here, I can then insert one of these dowels. They are dimensioned absolutely spot on to go into a 20mm hole. Yay. They came with an 8mm thread. So I had purchased just the other day some 8mm rod, rod with an 8mm thread on it. Oh yay. So that's what I've wound up with. The problem being, the shaft wasn't 8mm. It was 7.05 to 7.15. Well, that's no darn good for me if I want to use it as a registration tool. I came up with this. I put some heat shrink over it, and it turns out that that's actually not too bad. Pretty darn good, in fact, for the fit in the bushings. These are the bushings I'm talking about. Those that have seen the other videos have probably, you've heard me mention it more than once, but that is actually buttery smooth. This one in particular is buttery smooth. I also purchased, now let's just, I've got this one here. Ignore the collar that's around it, I was just fiddling. But that's actually an 8mm shaft used for doing things that require an 8mm shaft. It is 8mm. That is a very nice fit for the bushings. That's what I got them for. Very, very little wobble in it, so very, very good. Where am I going with this now is I wanted more of a metal to metal interface, not a one with the heat shrink on it. I'm happy with those, by the way. But what we've got here is, remember this was the 8mm shafts I was talking about? That is almost a friction fit. Well, you could say it is, because there's no wobble. And I achieved that in the workshop, in a woodworking workshop. How was that possible, I hear you ask? Well, if you're not asking, you should have, because I'm going to tell you. What it turned out to be, that I'll show you. I had some time ago, for a very similar requirement, purchased this lathe chuck, and I wanted to align the lathe chuck with my drill press chuck. Now, I've already made a video using the SketchUp format or interface, but I just wanted to do it, live, and because sometimes one video is probably a little bit more clearer in explanation. Anyway, this is the handle for the key for the lathe chuck. Just happens to be a very nice flat piece of stout steel, and I'm able to insert that into the drill chuck, or the drill press chuck, tighten it up, let it extend down so that I can then nib up the lathe chuck jaws onto it, meaning it self-aligns with the two chucks are now perfectly aligned. I can then bolt down the lathe chuck to the drill press bed, allowing me to insert one of these stainless steel dowels, into my lathe chuck and drill it out. And this is an important thing here, but drill it out with a 8mm drill. Yay. Now I've got my hole of the correct dimension. I'm going to make a point there that permits the correctly sized shaft to drop in there. And as I said, no wobble. If, however, and this was the whole point behind this video, I took one of my 8mm drills and drilled that out, there would be a wobble. Why is that, you ask? How did you do the magic? Well, let's just zero that out. And as best I can with one hand, actually, I will zero that out again. .01. That's about what I get. It wobbles a wee bit, alters a wee bit if I wobble the caliper. 8. Exactly 8.00. 8.1. Depending how I hold it, it will read 8mm or thereabouts. Well, that's actually a better one. I almost want to keep that out for a particular reason. This depends how you hold the caliper. Coming back over here. 7.98. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's 7.98. Very similar to that other drill bit. Not all 8mm bits are exactly 8mm. Knowing this, I chose to select a bit that was smaller than that, the pin. I have an 8mm reaming tool, a hand reamer. Didn't wind up needing that. Choosing the smallest 8mm sounds silly, but I chose the ever so slightly smaller drill bit because I know that using a machine like this, with whatever run out or what have you there is in the machine, the hole is always going to be slightly bigger than what you would have normally thought. After all, how often have you drilled something and used that same drill to then slide into the item that you've drilled, generally in metal, of course, and it feels a little bit loose? Well, that's the wee bit of wobble and friction and just the imperfections. Choosing the slightly smaller drill permitted me, when I put the, pointing in the right direction, when I used the shaft, which should have not gone into that hole, because this is 8mm or 8.01. Perfect. Could be marginally tighter, but honestly, I can't. Generally, you can feel wobble, and quite often you'll see it. So I've got just shy of a single piece, a 20mm to 8mm step down registration piece, again ignoring the collar. Should take that off. I was absolutely stoked with that. There's going to be a caveat that I'm going to end with, but that I was actually thinking about getting a machinist friend to machine something up with those sorts of tolerances inbuilt to the, to make it a single piece. Now I have exactly the situation I require for doing these sorts of things. A single hole in here, put that in. I can then register this plate because I've got a 8mm, it's actually the thread off one of the bushings. I sacrificed it for the cause. I can put that in there. That registers, and because that's already in the melamine, I can then turn that round, clamp it off, and I've got any number of holes I can choose to make up my plates, or multiples of. Ditto for the bars, which are required to have that same sort of registration. One hole for the bushing here. Put this into the melamine. That can register into the steel dowel here with this pin. I can then go down, position it, and then clamp off that bar and drill all the other holes, registering with this if I require it. One of the bars is 1600 long, it's got 16 holes, it's got 15 spaces, etc. So that can be the same. That will be used for making the holes in the MFT top in itself. But being able to register it accurately was critical. This is why I was very disappointed in getting these when they were ordered as an 8mm stud. Well, they actually were an 8mm thread, not even in the ballpark of 8mm. lucked in, and by the way, these varied in size. But lucking in, I was able to add a bit of heat shrink. Now, heat shrink is not all the same thickness. I just got lucky with this. So I've got 5 of these registration pins. I can now, however, make up a few more of these metal to metal ones as my preference. Yay. Now, the caveat, and the bit I'll end with, is maybe I'm getting too clever for myself. I shouldn't. You know, in an ideal world, when I drill all the holes, everything will be perfect, won't they? Maybe. If they are perfect, which they won't be, because just by nature, you know, like things move and I don't hold peace in the correct, you know, angle relative to the rotation of the Earth. By the time I've done dozens or hundreds of holes, there's a really good chance that I'll go to put in some of these pins and they just won't register 100% because I'm trying to get the any slight tolerance down to near zero. This is near zero. This isn't. The bush, oh sorry. Point camera in right direction, please. Okay, pointing camera in right direction. Even these bushes, which I've always thought as being, you know, and these shafts as being really, really well machined or matched, they still have a little bit of a wobble. This one doesn't. So I've just lucked in. Again, I'm not claiming that I'm some engineering genius, because that ain't true by any stretch of the imagination. But I lucked in to get that tolerance pretty good. In fact, I reckon a little bit of, like a little bit of oil would take up the little bit of intolerance, or anything that's left, and make it a better fit. Anyway, long story short, oh God, I've got to get rid of saying that. The point I'm making is getting everything perfect means everything does have to be perfect. Otherwise, the slightest bit of, as I said, the rotation of the Earth while I was drilling a hole might affect the ability to get these pins into the holes. Darn it. So it might, just might, be better to have a few that have got a little bit of wriggle room. I've got another one here. Oh man, I'll tell you what, that is so nice. Yeah. If you've got 2 points of pointing camera, God, the production value on this is not good. If I've got 2 points of registration and they are a little bit loose, putting a third one in might be able to take the wriggle out of the bar. The other way of looking at it, if I make up some of these with an inbuilt intolerance, just slightly, just not quite as perfect fit, still good, but not perfect, then it might allow that little wriggle room that might be necessary when you're making something like this in the workshop. So I'm already trying to get ahead of when I cock it up, and then everything that is supposedly perfect, or not, won't fit. I have noticed already that even trying to put these very tight bench dogs into paired holes or multiple holes can be a bit of an issue. So there's that. That is one of the reasons I believe, and I don't know which company it was, they mention about they have a standard fit and a firm fit bench dog. The difference being 3/100ths of a millimeter, and man, do you notice the difference with even that tiny amount. You wouldn't think so, but you do. Their standard fit is 19.95. Their firm fit is 19.98, that extra 3/100ths of a mil, and there's a big difference. In fact, can I prove my... I didn't even know that there was two different tolerances. But apparently there are. Now I'm going to turn that on, zero that out, and this that's not 19.96, depending how I hold it, 19.95. And that's actually saying it is just over 20 millimeters. Well, it's depending again how you hold it. It's right on, or just under 20. Let's just do that again. It should actually come up. It's pretty darn close to 20 mils, isn't it? Well, it's showing 20 mils. I quite often will get a reading of 19.98. So it's pretty good. You can see why I was quite impressed. See there, 19.99. These are effectively, what do you call it, firm fit bench dogs. This is a standard bench dog. And just by way of making a point, these are loose fit bench dogs. 19.87 in this case. So there's two different bench dogs there for sure. These two I would consider the ones that you would be wanting to go with, firm fit, and this one. This would be perfect for the general everyday use. Again, ditto for here, there's no problems with that. But occasionally you want a firmer fit, well then you need to buy or at least differentiate between standard and firm. Just turns out that these are 304 stainless steel. I purchased them from AliExpress, was it, or Banggood? AliExpress, I think. These are actual shaft material for doing projects. I don't know what you'd use them for, but like if you're making up a printer or something. And they turned out to be a lovely fit for my end purposes. So my voice should be carrying the enthusiasm that was very much lacking yesterday, because I was very, very annoyed having been waiting for and then receiving these threaded studs and for them to be totally not the right ones. But through just luck, heat shrink permitted me to, make them work. But now, very, very happy. Rightio, that's it. Perhaps next time I'll have something a little bit more, wee bit more of a progress going on. As I said, I actually had to interrupt myself and do some flaming work today. How rude. Right, I'm going to drill out some more of these and get ready for the... Oh no, that's right. I just remembered. Where's my drill press? Drill press. I still have to finish off doing the auxiliary table that I need to make up. I need to make the final decision on what I do with the braces, how I'm going to attach them at the bottom or locate them at the bottom. So and that was the whole reason for actually rebuilding that cabinet now, because it gave me that little ledge at the bottom to locate the brace on. So nothing clever about it. It's utilitarian and it should work. Rightio, there we go. I'm a happy camper, far happier than I was in the last couple of days. Just because it's annoying when you have to think, well, what am I going to have to come up with to fix this surprise problem? So I had the parts, fortunately, already purchased for doing a similar job, and now I can make proper use of it. Yay! Rightio, that's it. I'll see you in the next one now. Bye.